Hello and welcome to the Social Code Podcast, the place where we dive into the various ways our society is structured and try to break down the social codes of our society, of how we act and how we live together. I'm Ayush, and I'm with my friend Pranav here. Hey Pranav, what's up?
Hey Ayush, hello everyone. Quite excited to be here for our second season. Looking forward to
Yeah,
talking and
yes,
diving into education. So
yes,
please lead us into the
yes.
conversation.
So we're kicking off our second series. We've already done the first series about work, the nature of work, the meaning of work, and how we approach work. And we're kicking this off on the topic of education, about how the education system is structured in a society. And I think this is going to be a fascinating conversation. Really looking forward to it. Uh, let me just kick it off by saying that I have a few frustrations with education, with the current education system, right?
Mhm.
I think I'm an undergrad bachelor in technology, just an engineer. I never did a postgrad. Never had the opportunity. Never thought that I needed. That's a separate conversation. But yeah, but throughout my till I was in a formal education system till I was 21 or 22, I think. And what I realized is that being part of the system, and ever since leaving the system and speaking to so many people, uh, I realized that it doesn't prepare you for life almost, right? But to get more granular, to get more concrete, I think it never prepares you uh, for work, or to even make a living. Like, especially I come from India, I live in India, and there are so many people who are so well educated, but they find it so hard to find jobs, to make a living, to make a decent living. You'd imagine that if somebody is well educated, they're well read, they know their craft well. They're, especially with technical education,
Mhm.
if they know their craft well, if they're a good engineer, if somebody's a good engineer, they should be able to get a decent job and make a decent living, because like in this world probably we need engineers the most, like to build stuff. We always need people to build stuff, and that's what engineers do. And I'm like, what is wrong here? Uh, are they not good enough to get jobs, or are, like, what are companies looking for, and what should the education system change or improve to make it work? And then there's the other aspect of it, that where people who even do get jobs, they're not, like, they're probably not good enough at what they do, or uh, uh, you know we keep getting this complaint from the industry that our education system is not preparing, like they have to retrain people according to their systems, and teach them new technologies, latest technologies, or
Mhm.
they're not prepared for a professional life. So that is the other end, that somebody who's even getting a job. I know, like, I joined as a software engineer, and I went through a 6 month training to actually understand the craft of software engineering at my company, at my first job. Like, you are into education. You're a teacher. How do you how do you think about this? First of all, like, what do you think? Is this even a problem? I mean, I don't know. I may be having a very different, point of view. How do you think about it?
I I agree with you for the most part, but I think I am not sure what I'm agreeing with completely. So let me ask a few more questions. So the first part that you mentioned was the educate. Uh,
Not getting enough jobs. People are getting educated, but
uh,
they're not getting enough jobs.
right. So one part was when you come out of your school, can you get a job? And then the second part was even when you get the job, there is a complaint that you don't have all the professional expertise, and you gave your own example of you went through a training in the software job.
Yes.
So I think from my observation, I agree with you on both those points, but I'm not sure. Well, I want to understand more. I want to understand why you think that is a problem of the education system. Is it because it comes first? Like it comes, the education system, you're coming out of it, and then you are working. We were talking about work in the previous episode, previous season, and so a bunch of questions that I have. So let me ask, a set of questions so that I can better understand where you are coming from in the sense of the problem. So I agree with the problem. And before we dive into it, I think it would be useful to say that education is very close to my heart, and I'm fairly biased, and have thought about many years of what would make for a good education system. That does not mean I've had good thoughts. It's just that I've spent a lot of time thinking about this issue. And as you already mentioned, I currently am in that field and will be professor soon. So but this is a good time to have this conversation in a few months. I can, if I'm sure I'll learn something useful through our conversations, and I can take that in the classroom as well. So let me dive in and ask you a couple of clarifying questions. So number one is, do you think it is the job of the education system to make sure that you get a job? So you said that many people are not getting employed. Is it a supply problem, or it could be a demand problem? So the society is going through a recession, or you are generating more civil engineers than are needed by the particular country, or something of that sort. So that's part one. So is the problem in the education system, or is it just market forces? Supply demand is not matched up, part of the thing. And that does not mean that the supply demand, there can nothing be done in the education system to balance it out. But I'm trying to understand where you see the problem to be. And the second part, the question following up with your second part around training, is what would have been done differently in your education, in your BTech, that you didn't have to undergo the training that you did in your first job, right? So your claim is that you had to undergo extra training to be part of that job. What would have been done differently in your 4 years that led you to that job, right? So like, I'm being very direct in asking a very tactical question, because it's fairly important to understand and zero down the question or the problems that we have with the education system. The education system is a whole big thing with many moving parts and many goals and many expectations. So it might be useful to just spend the time clarifying what is the education system, what are our problems, where do those problems come from, before even trying to solve them. Or so like more time zeroing down the problem, then more time understanding what it is, and then thinking about the solution, right? Like the solutions might come in easier if we understand the ecosystem much better. That's the perspective I'm taking. So tell me more about these two questions. How would you respond to that?
Right, makes sense. So on the first part, I think it's hard to say whether it's market forces or not. It can be market forces, but my sense is that there are jobs, like there, especially in a country like India, which is growing so fast. There can never be there should never be a dearth of jobs. Okay, there will be a dearth of public jobs, like government jobs, probably because they're not not enough. That's a separate government corruption and that kind of issue. But private jobs, I think companies would always be looking for high quality candidates. Like you see, especially even in the case of software, we have companies from the US coming in, like Facebook and Google come to our top institutes and they hire from here. Plus,
Okay.
I'm a bit confused on this.
So let me ask you
Yeah,
a few more questions. I think I asked a too broad a question. So at this point, I want to refrain from trying to solve the problem or trying to say that,
sure.
oh, this is what it is. At this point, I'm really trying to understand what you think is the problem. You
Yes,
started out with, so let's take the two conversations separately. One, you said
right.
that students are not uh, getting jobs, right?
Yes,
And the second one was, even when you get the job, you need to be trained. So let's keep the
yes,
second one aside for now. Focus on the
sure.
first one. And what would be a good way? So let me ask, who is not getting a job? For example, you are going in the direction of software companies are coming even from the US, but they are not. I don't like the candidates that they are hiring are not the candidates who will not get a job.
Okay,
So I
okay.
don't think that's the problem. So
Then
the problem of not getting a job.
homegrown software companies, Indian software companies, which are service-based companies which need a lot of manpower. Right? They
Mm-hmm,
hire in hordes,
mm-hmm,
and like I joined one of them
mm-hmm,
as my first job, and
mm-hmm,
they hire many people.
mm-hmm.
Uh, I would imagine that there would be more there, like there should be probably more such companies, and even the companies that are there, they would be able to hire more people. Uh, like I just think like this whole
So what I'm now
yeah
hearing is not an education
yeah.
system problem. It is a company problem that these companies should be hiring more. What am I missing? I think I am not sure I understand the problem.
So
That's
not
why I
just
said, yeah.
yeah, sure. This is a specific scenario with the software world, but if you take it any engineering degree with mechanical, civil, electrical, electronics and communications, uh, I'm I
Are
would
there enough
imagine.
jobs? Are there enough jobs? So the question is,
I
I
think
think,
that's yeah. I think yeah. That's what we're drilling down to.
hmm,
That's what we're coming down to. That are there enough jobs in the industry to serve so many people? But if that is the problem, then uh,
is it an
that means
education
that
system problem? I think that's where I'm headed.
no.
Is it an
So
education system
yes,
problem?
yeah. So then the education system should realign itself to go where the jobs are. Uh, right in some way or the other. So either it's an industry problem that not enough jobs are being created, or it's an education system problem where there are jobs but the system is not supplying those jobs to the industry. uh,
So again, I don't have the facts of the matter. That's why I,
yes, sure.
at this point we are not trying to factually diagnose. We are trying to figure out about the education system. Why is this problem existing, and how can the education system do better? Based on what you just told me, the underlying reasons could be twofold. One is there is a population problem. That is, we have way too many people graduating every year, and we just don't have that many jobs. In that case, it is not, strictly speaking, an education system problem. But
Mhm.
there could be the other side, as you were starting to go in that direction, that there are jobs in the industry that are going unfulfilled, but there are
Mm,
not enough
mm, mm,
candidates to fill them. And
mm,
that could be more to do with the number of graduates that the
mm,
software industry can absorb is much
mm,
higher than the number of software engineers passing out, which would be a different problem for the number of civil engineers the civil engineering industry can absorb
mm,
is much lower than the number of civil engineers graduating each year. Okay, so it's a distribution problem, and that we can say might be in the purview of the education system. The population problem might not be. And I'm just using engineering as an example because we're talking about it. It same applies to commerce, to hotel management, to fashion design, all of these things. The more you go towards professions in which you can do something of your own, and you're not getting absorbed in a work in an industry perspective, the more these lines get blurred, because then it's not a matter of supply demand. It's just you need to set up your own law practice or dental practice or those kinds of things. Those are resource problems, which is again probably not a education system problem. So which of these or all of these are you referring to? Are you saying that there are jobs in the market, but the right kinds of graduates are not coming out? Or are you saying that we have too many graduates coming out and the industry cannot absorb all of them? And these are distinct problems. We should not match them up.
I think here's where the two initial conversations, two initial topics mixed together. I have a feeling that if the candidates were good enough, more companies would hire them, and they would get hired, even from international companies, not just Indian companies or and for globally for that matter. That we're just not good enough. We're not producing good enough people. That's why industries are not hiring. Companies are not hiring because for a good candidate, there is never like a cutoff that we will not hire a good candidate. And no company wants to say that.
So that does not make sense to me. I am not saying that all the candidates that will graduate will be, IIT level things, because it's at the end of the day, it is a supply system, right? The more elite you start becoming, the easier it is for you to get hired later on. And there are systematic ways in which, that distribution happens. Some go to IIT, some goes to NIT, and similar elite institutes for their specific trade. Like there's NITI and all of those places.
Sure.
And most of the population of India does not go to top institutes.
Yes.
Does this mean that most of the education system does not work? So I think here's my trouble. We are having a very specific conversation, which is leading us down to more of let's diagnose the engineering education experience because you're pulling from personal experience. I'm happy to have that conversation, but I would rather want us to focus a little away from it and ask both of these or all three of these problems of population, like number of people more than number of jobs, of distribution, that is the type of jobs not matching up the number of graduates, or the resources, that is after you graduate, do you have the resources to do your thing, or the time, or all those things.
Yes.
All of these three things. Let's ask a more broader question, irrespective of which field you graduate from. Is the education system's goal to get you a job or to get you started on a
so that's so the really broad problem in my head is that if somebody is educated, they should be able to make a living, right? That's basic. It's not about if you're not getting jobs, you should be able to go out there and set up your own thing, probably, and do your own stuff, like do freelancing, or do your own business or a law practice or an accountancy practice, I just feel like we have too many people in our country who are well educated, but they're just sitting at home. Right.
So what do you mean by sitting at home? So I think this is getting a little beyond how deeply aware I am of real people and real problems. I am more aware of statistics than of in my circle knowing these details. So you would have to fill in over here and help me understand the situation better.
Sure, sure.
The folks who are sitting at home, is it because one, they did not get a job, two, they cannot do something of their own, three, what is it that they're doing, or what would have happened differently in their education? So if they have a degree, they went through an education, right? I'm not trying to defend the education system. I'm simply saying that they did what was asked of them and they got the credentials.
Yes. Exactly.
Right? Why is it that they don't have a job? So let's understand the problem. Not that there are unemployed people. The question is not that there are unemployed people. The question is, why is it that they are unemployed?
Yes. So yes. So I think one thing is becoming clear to me as we have this conversation, that there aren't enough jobs to go around. To me, the only solution to that is self-employment. But it seems, so whatever I read and whatever I speak to, whenever I speak to people on the ground, what I see is that many of these examples that I have of people who are well educated and who don't, who are basically they're not actually sitting at home. They're preparing for government exams. They're trying to crack the few government jobs that are to go around. And if you tell them that you should get into self-employment or you should apply for private jobs, and they have this mindset that that is not a safe route, and sometimes it feels like a mindset problem to me.
So
That they're
I think
not approaching their career, their professional life the way they should be. And again, I will still pin that problem back to the education system.
so. This is where I would interject and ask you to think back on: is it your subjective perception? Is it your judgment that these people should be doing something, or is it that you're giving the other people the independence to make their own call? So here's the thing, to put it very bluntly, are you being Indian paternalistic? Are you saying that beta ye kaam karo, क्या घर बैठ के तुम पढ़ाई कर रहे हो, खुद से नौकरी करो या खुद की कंपनी चालू करो, just because you are doing this? So like, this is what I'm saying. I want you to be a little careful and reflect back and tell me, is the problem really that the student who's sitting at home and preparing for an IAS, that person shouldn't be doing that and should be starting a company of his own? I completely understand there is a lot of opportunity out there. I completely understand that the trade-off that you made worked out for you and it made sense to you. Does this mean that is the trade-off, that that trade-off applies to all of these people? And how do you know that you are not being that parent who says, beta engineering karo, beta MBA karo, beta khud ki company karo, right? So I think this is where I'm saying, like, let's be a little careful about disentangling the problem versus your opinion of the problem. I'm completely open to the idea that there might not be enough employment, but I'm not open to the idea that people are not doing what you think is the right thing to do. Right? Because that would, I would say, why, right? Like, if I were to impose my judgment, I'm like, Ayush, what are you doing? Yes, you just have a BS degree. What the hell are you doing? Right? It does not make any sense. Right? You're still successful, and you found success at your own terms.
Success is subjective, yeah, sure.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. I cannot hold you accountable to my definitions of success. You are success from your own things. So why is a person who's sitting at home trying to?
Because sure, there is definitely an aspect of judgment and opinion on my part, and I completely agree. I'm at flaw here, at fault here, but there is this growing frustration in those people, that the world is not just, that society is not just to them. That they did whatever was told to do, what they were told by society to do. They got into a good school, they got good marks, they got good grades, they got a good degree, they did undergrad, postgrad, and now they're applying for these jobs and they're not getting it because there aren't enough jobs to go around probably. And they don't want to go the unscripted paths, quote unquote unscripted paths that script that doesn't that I would probably advocate them to go. So of course it's completely their choice of what they do with their life, and I have nobody to tell anybody to do anything. But there is this frustration that that the world is essentially, and if you look at the story, it's clear that if they will feel this, that the world is a zero-sum place, and they are not getting their due, and which also, like, without any statistics or any scientific data, I would like to say that this frustration and this zero-sum mentality ultimately leads to a lot of crime that happens in this country as well. Crime by educated people, and again, don't have to go there, but yeah, but when you feel that there is no other way to make a living, you start to look for illegal ways of doing it. But again, that's a distraction we don't want to take. Again, judgment on my part. So coming back, not judging them, but there is this frustration that society or the education system should have, given them better tools, or like if they followed the script, right? Why aren't they able to make a living for themselves?
So I think you're now bringing up very different questions, and like I'm happy to go down those rabbit holes, but
Sure,
I would have to read a bit more. I have no idea about crime committed by educated folk. I have absolutely zero idea. This is the first time I'm hearing of it.
Sure.
So today would not be a good time, but I do want to understand the problem, right? Like, so is the problem? Let's not look at downstream problems. Let's look at the problem of. This is a bit tough. There are 4 or 5 ideas coming in.
There are many. Yes.
So
many threads going on.
Let me help organize and make sure that we are being at least articulate and coherent. Let's bring this back to the students who are going through the education system, getting educated at the end. Perhaps a good percentage of them, 5%, 10%, 15%, are not finding jobs. I suspect the question that you have to answer for me, and this is a hard one, so I'm happy to break it down, but I don't want to scope you down also. What is it that the education system failed them in? So you told me that the students followed the script. They did what was asked of them to do.
Yes.
I don't understand how is that converting into a leap of the education system failed us.
There should be a different script. The script that works, right?
Okay, so let me push you on that, because I think I've heard this narrative many times. I just don't know what that narrative means, right? Is the blame being put on the world owes you something, or the education system should do better? Or is it, so here's the thing, I don't understand the motivation behind such statements. Is the motivation that I don't want to take responsibility for my actions and my outcome?
I took responsibility. I passed all the exams. I got good scores. I got all the credentials. There's a lot of credential inflation happening. People are getting many degrees. They hold multiple postgrad degrees, and they still don't get, still not able to make a living. Right. And so they are following like whatever society is telling them to do.
So here's the thing. I think this is now getting to the place where I can broadly push you harder to separate certain things. One is making a living. The other is getting educated. And the third is following the script that society, which is probably your parents, your friends, media, whatever
Everyone
around you
Yeah,
is telling you to do.
Yes.
I want to push you, and I'm happy to get a pushback.
Yes.
But
Yes.
I want to push you to keep these three things separate. The education system shouldn't be a catch-all for all the problems. And if it is, then I want you to reason and convince me of why what your parents tell you, what the media tells you is part of your schooling. Like, why has schooling failed you if somebody's telling you to do engineering and you are believing them and you're not making
an informed choice,
right? Like, your parents might be telling you do engineering and they might be exactly right, but
in their perspective,
right, but their information is 20 years old or 15 years old, or they think that is a safe option, right?
Yes.
So how is the education system, or rather, okay, so
that's why we have
how is the schooling system failed you?
Yes.
Did the school promise you a job, right? And that's what I'm saying. And then if you get a job, how does it correlate to making a living? Because making a living is like a fairly itsy bitsy thing. The person who's sitting at home and studying for IAS, I guarantee you, if they were reasonably smart enough, they actually cracked the job, but they didn't want to take a 2 lakh or 5 lakh or 8 lakh per annum job, because they felt that they could take a drop and study harder to get this other job. And that's the same trade-off that you've made at some point, to drop from your job and do something of your own, right? It is a trade-off. You make your own trade-offs, you take your own risks, and you do it.
Yes.
So, and all of these three things are now just basically different from the initial problem that you set up, that there are not enough jobs in the industry, right? So unemployed because you don't have the options is very different from you're choosing to remain unemployed. And I don't want to, put down one type of problem for the other. I'm just trying to follow the conversation.
So on the initial problem, I think I made up my mind, like thinking through and talking through that there just aren't enough jobs in the industry. Like I think that there should be enough jobs, because that's the only way we grow, is to get everybody into the workforce, every part of our population, get them into the workforce and work. And that as a society, as a culture, as a planet, that's how we will progress. But again,
that need not be jobs, right? Like, I'm saying, if you cannot get a job, you could start your own.
That's why I say that. That's why I say it's a mindset. That's a mindset issue, that people who can start their own thing don't start, and they stick around for jobs. Again, I don't want to focus on the industry problem, because I understand that. So this is the thing. Everyone in the education industry, education system believes that if we get educated, we will get a job at least, right? And then we can you don't. So I see that this probably is a matching issue.
So let's step back and ask that question and crystallize that question.
Yeah.
Is the goal of your schooling or your education system to get you a job? Is that the goal? To get you a job versus to give you the skills that can help you make a living, either by cracking a job or by starting something of your own, or whatever is the way, right? So the education system, is the education or the schooling system, the university or the online course or whatever it is that on the hook for getting you a job, or getting any person going through it a job? Or is it on the hook for giving you the skills to do the things?
Yes. So this is a very broad thing, and I think at least we at least need the skills to make a living, and then there are other problems as well. The skills to actually live a life, life skills. People don't have life skills as well. They don't know how to manage their personal finances. They don't understand psychology. They don't understand how humans behave. So they don't realize that the world doesn't owe them anything. So again, a lot of judgment, heavy judgment coming in there, which I don't want to get into.
No, I'm
Uh,
okay with judgment as long as. So I think don't fear being judgmental or making a mistake,
yeah,
but don't stop at judgment. Understand where is that judgment coming from and what is the insight or what is the frustration behind that judgment. So take two more steps. Make the mistake, make the judgment, be harsh, and then take one more step. What am I being judgmental about? Why am I being judgmental about it? And then
yes.
the judgment will automatically go away and you'll understand the problem. So like that's what I'm trying to push you also. It's okay to be judgmental, but it's not okay to stop there. Push forth.
Sure.
Uh, so let's dial it back. And I heard so many more exciting ideas and which are exciting problems in the space of education is, oh, you don't have life skills and you don't have finance skills and you don't have the fearlessness,
Critical thinking.
critical thinking. Uh,
That's a big one.
so all of these are awesome problems. I am also a parent. You're also a parent of young kids. So we all
Yes.
want our kids to learn good manners and like they're not nowhere near job things, but we want them. We still have expectations
To be good citizens of the world. Yes, that is another
Right.
issue that's there.
And have ethics and morals and values and
Yes.
it is a very broad problem. So let us step back from the exit point of the education system, in which if the conversation, even though it went all the places, I think one inference we can draw is that we are not really sure what is the role of the education system in all of these problems, right? But that said, just in the last 2-3 minutes, we've layered on the education system 15 more problems.
Yes.
All right. So let's take a step back and rather than leading from frustrations, come and ask, what are the goals of an education system? What is expected? Like, what kind of education system will we be happy with?
I doubt we'll ever be happy with whatever education system.
Then
I'll just say that all of these problems that are there, right? Like jobs, getting jobs, making a living, being a good citizen, like ethical, moral, good citizen, or having critical thinking, like hard decision making skills, being able to take important, crucial decisions at important moments of your life. Or managing your personal finances well, like you see highly educated people who make a lot of money but still live in debt, like credit card debt, or take on personal loans for extreme sometimes extreme scenarios, sometimes not so extreme scenarios. Like you would imagine that somebody is so well educated, they would be able to manage their money at least, right? And basic life skills, right? People when they move out of their homes for the first time, uh, they don't know what to do, right? They enter a very different world, uh, and again I'm layering so many different problems here, and there are probably different personas as well, right? But one thing that's common across these personas that I've met in my life over the last 15-20 years is that all of them are well educated people, right? They have like good degrees, undergrad, postgrad degrees, and yet they face like these different layers of problems in their life. And I would imagine that if they are educated, they should be able to solve these problems for themselves. That is where this idea of an education system solving so many problems comes in. But I see where your point as well, that an education system should not be expected to solve so many things, or probably a schooling system should not be expected to solve so many problems. Like we can't just solve them with just schools.
So yes, I wholeheartedly agree with a lot of things. So, and although it is important to place these problems in a meaningful manner. A BTech or postdoc for that matter, any of these technical degrees, they are not expected to teach you how to handle finances. It's
Yes.
a very deep technical degree, or a very deep finance, or a very deep fashion degree that you are doing, or design and architecture. They will not teach you how to be manage your personal finances. I don't think they're on the hook for doing that, right?
Sure.
So that, I think trade schools, just putting them in one loop,
Yeah.
trade school level things, that is maybe after your high school, they are giving you specialized skills that will help you be add value to the society and make a living,
Yes.
whether through a job or through working on their own. So that's the mandate of a trade school. Any trade school that you join after your, it could be a commerce based, so it's some specialized skill. The other skills, which let's put them in a broad category of life skills, critical thinking, all of these things. These may be, while it is an ongoing thing, we have to do it ourselves as well, but they are more likely to be done by the time you're 15 or 16. Right? You need to have some base to build on.
Sure.
That said, I don't think all of this will happen through what you are also making a distinction of schooling versus education system. So let me step back and give a perspective here. I think a healthy education system is absolutely important for a healthy society.
Exactly.
In most cases, when we think about an education system, at least in our generation, we confuse it with the schooling system, and specifically the industrial schooling system.
Yes.
And that, I think, is a very big misconception, which first needs to go away. And it wasn't so, I would say, maybe 2 generations back.
Okay.
Where the critical thinking, personal finance, moral values, all of these things were not considered to be the job of the school, the schooling system.
Okay.
It was more of family values. Like in India, it came to be known as, in different terms of what kind of family you belong to, your manners, and all of those things.
Sure.
It comes from a different world. But what I'm not trying to say is we should go back there. What I'm trying to say is the education of the youth, from kids to maybe 20 something, non-trade school type education, is not the responsibility of the school alone. It's the responsibility of the society at large. From your family to your friends to your neighborhood, then your school, then the society that you go in. Because as a kid, you will go to the market and you will see people interacting, and you will learn from that how to interact.
Yes.
You will copy from your parents of how you treat a waiter, a servant, each other, a boss, whatever they're observing. So the education system is really a more general term. If we are also including the burden of teaching students life skills and how to be a good citizen, how to be a good neighbor, how to be a good person, moral and ethical, in the purview of an education system. So I don't think that will happen in schools, especially not the industrialized model of schools that we set up. So the expectation of having that is by default. So the problem is not in the education system. The problem is we are trying to screw with a hammer. It is an industrialized schooling system is not the tool for this job. It is a tool for a different job, and it perhaps does that well, or it is overwhelmed with the population pressure and it's doing it suboptimally. But it will fail for a task it is not designed to do. Okay, so this was my monologue, and I think mostly coming from the place that this is the biggest misconception of we have to understand what the system is designed for And if we still have a problem, then we should ask a more, like, that's generally the tone of our conversation. Let's first understand what is the goal of an education system, and now broadly speaking, and then think about why our current system, the social institutions around education, are failing to generate students in their 20s who are getting a job, can do critical thinking, can start their own, have their own voice and start their own businesses, or be artists or whatever that is, and just like, be good citizens, be happy.
I'll add one more.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll add one more to this. Like, be happy. Like, there's a fantastic quote from Naval Ravikant that says, "If you're so smart, why aren't you so happy?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, exactly, right. You're so well educated. You have so many credentials.
But I think that then it almost seems like you're setting me up to make a very what do I say, crazy, very crazy comment. You're trying to equate education with smartness, and then that is like, we shouldn't be talking at that level. That does not make any sense. And I think this is not something new. This is not a new insight. Education is not the same as smartness. Education, you can say the goal of a good education system should be that you are smart. But this is the first time I'm hearing that.
Yes.
Up until now, the good education system should be to get you a job. It makes no sense to me.
These are all parts of being smart, right? These are all different aspects of being smart.
I think this is the part where we should dive deeper into and understand the problem. Getting a job because you are smart is different from because you got a job you are smart. So if the education system's goal is to get you a job, it may get you a job, but that does not guarantee that it has made you smart.
Okay.
If the goal of the education system is to make you smart, then the education system should not be on the hook for getting you a job, because a smart person can choose not to go for a job.
Yes.
Right? Or like do something different with their life. And that's where it becomes very important to understand what are we asking of our education system.
Yes.
And these may seem like trivial differences, but they are not. It will completely change and dictate our first understanding of where the problem is, and second, how can we design to make sure we are getting something. And for me, I think it boils down to something very simple. And this I use this statement in many different ways in generally when I'm talking and coaching and helping people think through problems, is if you are unclear about your goal and you're investing heavily in a system, just because you've put in the hard work, you've done the hustle and you've done everything, if the goal does not match the system, you're only setting yourself up to fail. You may find the failure feedback after a lot of investment, time, money, whatever you're investing.
Yes.
But the setup of the failure has happened here. Because you chose the wrong type of system for achieving the wrong type of goal. Right? Me giving you a hammer when we need to screw 15 screws, I have already set you up to fail. You may be successful in getting one screw in, right? Does not mean you'll do a good job. So this is the part. Let's not set ourselves up to fail before we dive into any of these mess. And this is where this is a big elaborate conversation. Keep ourselves on task. Let's focus on first, try to figure out what is the reasonable way of articulating the goal of a good education system.
Yes.
And then what do we mean by the education system itself? Is it just schooling or is it more? Right? And then we can pick each of these goals and then talk about how will we design, or rather, how is our current education system designed to serve this goal? And wherever it falls short, how would we design something new, or what we would change here to make sure that we have a better chance of hitting this target, right?
So So I have a feeling that every system that is designed, when it was designed, it is uh, done with the best of intentions, with the current context and the society that it is designed in.
Mhm.
But ultimately, with time and with natural evolution and occurrences, it outgrows its utility,
Mhm.
or rather, uh, you know, that's what's happened with the education system. And we are too probably we don't have the resources to redo everything, or whatever improvements have to happen in this system only. But for us, while having this conversation, we don't need to to make it. I would love to run a thought experiment and reimagine the education system from first principles
Mhm.
for today's society.
Okay.
I know the difficult, like the practical challenges of actually doing it, but I would like to imagine, if we're starting afresh, we know everything that we know so far till 2022, and of how society functions, of how humans function, and how should an ideal education system, not just a schooling system, but an education system should be designed. And of course, and the problems that we just listed down, that all these problems, there is employability, there is ability to make a living on your own, there is critical thinking, there is personal finance, being a good citizen, ultimately being happy in your life.
Mhm.
All of these problems, first of all, can one system cater to it? If we were to rethink it and build it from first principles from scratch, how would we do it? Maybe it takes a bunch of different systems working together. We have probably have to break down the problem, break down responsibilities. How do we do this?
Yeah.
What do you think?
That all of that sounds like a very lofty goal, and I'm excited about our conversations. I definitely think we cannot cover any of it today.
Of course not.
uh,
No,
but
of course
the,
not. We've already run out of time, I think. Yeah.
yeah, so I like the ambition. I am all for the ride, and hopefully we'll uncover more exciting things. But before we close
Yes.
today, it might be useful to at least articulate the goals, and
Yes.
then, until we meet next week, we can
Yeah.
come back and begin with the goals. Do they still make sense, or do you want to revise them?
Yes.
And
Okay.
I'll take the first stab based on whatever I've heard right now, and we've discussed so far, and perhaps add one more to it that I have been thinking about. So the first one is trade skills, right? Which
Okay.
is some form of skills you have that can that have the potential to add value to the society so as to make a living.
Yes.
It could be through a job. So you did software engineering, you get a software job. You did law degree, you become a lawyer, or you do CA, those things. Some kind of
Sure.
skill building that can get you to earn a living.
Yes.
Either ways, doing a job or starting your own company, whatever. Second one was individual level rational thinking, life skills, which would encompass everything around thinking critically, making decisions in, like, as your life situation changes, managing your
Yes.
finances, right? Like,
Yes.
so managing your finances is a specific application of critical thinking
Sure.
in a time of when you're just starting out. You have to make different trade-offs. When you are in a job, you have to make different trade-offs. When you have a kid and you have a family, you have to make different trade-offs. So there are financial implications, where there are other things that good critical thinking would get you that. So individual level, rational critical thinking, life skills oriented. Then there is what we were thinking in terms of uh, moral and citizenry value, like friends and how do you behave with others. And so just collective level rational thinking of
Yes.
how are you a good friend.
How do we not kill each other?
I think the bar can be a little higher, but yes, that would be a good start. So and I the place that I would add, which is part of
Yeah.
this subtitle, but we haven't spoken, is to get up to the level of not at the high school level, but when you're adults, when you're members of society, you're voting members of society. So understanding
Yes.
governance, right? It is our
Oh, of course.
civil duty, understanding how your government is working. If you live in a democracy, how do you be a good participant of that democracy? Because it has a big reverse impact. A good education system leads to a healthy society. It is through the
sure.
mechanism of people understanding governance. And it's not just at the national level, it is also at the level of how do you run your own organization? How do you run your own family? How do you run your own neighborhood?
Yes.
And not run as a sense that you're the CEO, but you're always a participant. You're always a participant of so many social systems. So, so collective level rational thinking as against the individual level rational thinking. That's number 3. And number 4 is, I would argue, the way we were talking in our previous season on work, some form of what do you do when you're not doing working, some form of self-expression. Either you are a poet or you are a writer or you're all of these things. We shouldn't let that, be on the side. I think it is part of a well-rounded, nurturing education system to help each person find their own voice around if they can be a good sports person, like finding their own well-rounded opportunities and picking their path.
Yeah, self-expression is ultimately what gets you to happiness, and it's again comes back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Where most of the population we see is still at the initial 2 steps, but as they grow, they come to the top, and it comes about self-actualization. Self-actualization will come from self-expression, from the ability to figure out what fulfills you, and spend more time on that. And
I think that it will be very hard to design a school to get you to self-actualization.
yes, that's what I was getting to. That again, is this an education system problem? Is this a schooling system problem? Can we even solve this problem? I don't know. Like self-actualization, self-expression is a very complex complex matter. Like how do we even train people for it?
Let's
not
take a
get there today.
yeah. So I think our conversation went in many places, and I hope we didn't lose people on the directions that we are taking, but this is just an evidence for how complicated the education system problem is.
Exactly, how complex the problem is.
How differently different people think about it. And this is just the 2 of us, and I've had conversations on this with many people in academia, outside of academia, parents, non-parents, and everybody has a specific take. Hopefully, we are, after exploring so many nooks and crannies, I think we are coming for this episode to the conclusion that there are at least 4 goals, and I'll reiterate those 4 goals. One is building skills that can help you earn a living, trade skills. 2, individual level rational thinking, which helps you with life skills. 3, collective level or social level rational thinking, which gets you to how to behave with each other, uphill, understanding your role in good governance at different levels, family, society, country. 4th one is figuring out your individual level self-expression of, just finding your voice. Currently, we are saying that there are at least these 4 goals, and each one of them is fairly complex.
Yes.
Let you and I, rather than trying to dive into any one of them right away, think whether these 4 goals make sense. Are there more goals? Is any of one of these 4 not supposed to be part of our education system? and perhaps pick up next time on, like, if this is not a long conversation, then pick up next time on the first one and start diving into it,
Yes,
which we had
for sure.
already started doing.
For sure.
What do you
For
think?
sure.
Like, this is in my head, I'm trying to
Yeah.
lesson plan.
I think first, I think education system is a good term, but it's not useful. I think what I'm thinking of is more of a human preparation system, where whenever a human is born in society, that he or she has to go through a system that will prepare them for life and for society. And education system is doing an average job of that. That is our expectation from the education system. But essentially, it's a more broader problem of a human preparation system that we are looking for. And yeah. So I think we've broadly specified the problems that such a system would do. And next week onwards, we should start getting into the specifics of each problem and how that problem can be solved. I'm pretty sure that the schooling system, quote unquote, schools are not the entire education system. There have to be more verticals to them to solve this problem. We should not be expecting too much from our schools if we expect them to solve all of these problems.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, we don't have anything else. Like, we don't have any other structure in our society to deal with. That's why we pin everything down on our schools.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is the problem, that because there is nobody to blame, nobody to point a finger to. That's why it's like, okay, what has this person done for first 25 years of their life? They've been through this whole schooling system. Why are they not ready for everything that life throws at them? Right? And that's where we need to probably break that mentality and have probably different structures, or more overtly expressed structures, that this is only schooling system is only supposed to do X and not Y and Z and everything else.
Sounds good. I'm excited to dive into each of these goals and figure out what our current education system is good at, and if we were to design something different and ideal, what it would look like.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nice. Awesome. Thank you for joining this week. Thank you everyone for joining this week. And let's meet next week and have more interesting conversations. Bye. Have a nice day.
Sounds good. See you, everyone.